Yeah, Drago G. Smooth talking Drago G, I keep that dope in my sock. These niggas mad, I whip the foreign for that bass on the block. Heavy stepper, big pimpin', man, these checks don't stop. You disrespect me, we gon' wreck you.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another reaction. This is the updated 2B2T timeline from 2010 to 2020. 2B2T is one of the oldest Minecraft servers in the history of Minecraft. I actually think it's one of the first. Yeah, it's like a complete anarchy server. You can come on there and pretty much do whatever you want. You can grief people. You won't get. I mean, there's a lot more rules and stuff around it now because so many people are on it, and like there's so many different ways that you can kind of like exploit the world, but you kind of want to keep it to where it's like, still playable, or whatever. But yeah, 2B2T is insane. It's insane. I found out about this about 3 years ago, and I was just like seeing how much everything changed over the amount of time people were playing it. Like there were different eras where you had like maybe people who were like in high school at one time playing it, when maybe like the server first began, and then like as they get older they stopped playing it, and you get like new people coming on, or like people who always been there, they kind of like stayed, and they're kind of like the top tier guys, like kind of like the strongest players and stuff. Spawn, like there's a lot of different, there's like a lot of different things surrounding 2B2T. There's a lot of lore type stuff, but it just for something that's been around for over a decade. I mean, there's actually, yeah, over a decade, man. It's insane. So yeah, we're gonna hop in.
Oh, I never heard about that.
Hey, we're gonna hop in. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share, man. Yeah.
I'm gonna hop in.
This is the updated timeline of the oldest anarchy
Automation
server in
period?
Minecraft, 2B2T. The timeline spans from the server's origins in 2010 to the present day in 2020. An entire decade of digital history. No other server has a history as in-depth and as well documented as 2B2T's. Sato86 founded the Timeline project back in 2014 and has been updating it on a yearly basis. Since the server is 100% player-driven, it's as close to a canon timeline as you can get. This is the first update to it since 2018, so today we'll be covering the changes and new additions to it since then,
That's
and
Spawn.
discuss some of the reasoning behind these changes.
Over the years,
If
people
you've
just
been watching my
decimated
2B2T content
so
and
like,
haven't subscribed yet,
for like
make
millions
sure
of
to hit that
blocks,
button
just like
for the
literally
latest
just
on the
destruction.
oldest anarchy server in Minecraft. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. The time from 2010 to the end of 2018 has remained pretty much unchanged since the last update.
People build some insane
It still
stuff on
maintains
this
the
damn
pattern
thing,
of an age being followed by a shorter period. If you haven't seen my previous video on the 2B2T timeline, I'll do a quick recap of it so you're caught up to speed. It begins with the Age of Unrest, the earliest days of the server, where the player base consisted of people from 4chan and Facepunch. There isn't much on the timeline from this era because nobody bothered writing anything down back then. The Great Decay period was when the overall player count dropped, and the few remaining players formed allegiances. The Age of Resurgence was when the player count rose again. Groups began forming, and player-driven events such as incursions started happening. The pre-hype
they were using like
period
slave
was when
labor and
large
shit.
bases were griefed, and the
Nuts.
backdoor drama occurred. A large amount of players moved to other servers or simply quit over this. And the Age of Hype, which was when YouTubers began making content on 2B2T and exposed the server to a wider audience, drastically increasing the player count. Only 2 additions have been made to the timeline retroactively: the founding of the group Highland and the founding of the group The Astral Order. Since these 2 groups have survived for many years now, their founding dates were considered significant enough to be added to the previous section of the timeline. Other than those 2 additions, it is exactly the same as mentioned in my previous video. So now, let's begin where the previous timeline left off. Welcome to the automation period. It begins in March of 2019, when the YouTube algorithm begins promoting 2B2T content heavily. This was partially due to the resurgence of Minecraft's popularity, the 10th anniversary of Minecraft, but also because 2B2T content was recognized by YouTube as being bingeable. where new viewers would watch one video about it after another. All of these factors led to an explosion of interest in the server, even more than when YouTubers had first invaded in 2016. April of 2019 saw the first game-breaking exploit being used on the server, the God Mode exploit. Without going into technical details, it allowed players to fly around while invisible and invincible. These players would abuse the exploit by using sharpness 32K swords to kill anyone they felt like. Since it was unknown how the exploit worked for a few weeks, it caused a panic and completely shut down spawn PvP. Everyone was afraid to go near 0-0. Early summer brought three major events to the
0-0 is
timeline.
fine. Like,
Etika
first
joins the server
appear
for
in
the
a
first
game.
time and introduces an entire audience of people to it who had never heard of it before. The destruction of the largest, most ambitious end base in the server's history, Spacewalk 3, and the conclusion of the Purge, a player-driven event that aimed to wipe out new players that had joined due to the algorithm or from Etika. In August of 2019, the 8th incursion is attempted to be started, only to last a mere 15 days. The failure of the 8th incursion is what allowed a group of players to come together to start what is now known as the Infinity Incursion, a group dedicated to honoring the legacy of all the previous incursions, but also attempting to have a non-stop presence at spawn. This group still survives to this day. In September of 2019, one of the most useful hacks in the server's history, Entity Speed, was patched. Entity Speed was one of the easiest ways to travel to 2v2t's world border, and its removal made long-distance travel much more challenging. The community was outraged that it was patched, but quickly forgot about it once elytras were added back to the server. November saw the rise of the No Server November movement, where exploiters attempted to crash the server every single day of November. It was in response to players having their priority queue removed after book banning hundreds of other players. This is also the month where the 100K mapping project was released to the public, the largest world download of 2v2t spawn region ever taken. 100K blocks by 100K blocks.
This is nuts.
In December, the largest player-made structure in the server's history is created, the Spawn Mason logo, using 28 million blocks of obsidian. The project was held by Hermetic Lodge.
They use
and utilized
bots.
bots for much of the building.
Yeah.
In this month, the Donkey Dupe is also patched, which was one of the longest running, most persistent duplication glitches ever used on 2v2t. This was also the month that Elysium was griefed.
Oh my gosh.
Community-driven base.
Yeah, bro, they had giant bases like this all over. That's what I thought this was gonna. I thought this was gonna go like over the whole timeline and kind of give like a. This is just him just talking about new updates to the time. So we're going to go back and watch like the stuff that happened before, but like, bro, they have bases like this all over.
Were people destroying them for real?
Yeah, yeah, but I was just saying like there was huge bases like this all over the server.
Yeah.
You know, like I said before, like in this, you're allowed to destroy and do all that type of stuff, griefing. So you had to take the risk of like coming in here, and you had to travel, like he was saying, like you had to travel super, super far out into the map, into like these like places where no one will probably see it, and build these places. You can either build it on the ground, all the way up in the sky, build it in another, the end. They build them all over the place, but a lot of these bases get destroyed.
Was there was it easier getting to the end than another?
I'm not necessarily sure. I've been
like, did they have like whole structures like as like end portals and nether portals?
I believe so. Man, they get a whole bunch of stuff, man. People built everything on this map, man. This thing been around for over 10 years. So just the amount of stuff that's been built and destroyed here is incredible. Like it's crazy. Go on, reckon.
History finally being griefed. The monastery. The authentication exploit that compromised thousands of accounts on the server and effectively leaked the coordinates of countless bases.
Oh my god.
We still don't even understand the true amount of damage and fallout from this event. And that brings us to today.
I like a dude with a beard.
So now that we've covered the major events on the timeline, why is it called the automation period? Well, there were actually 3 possible name choices for this period. the algorithm period, the fragmentation period, and the automation period. The algorithm period was considered because of how YouTube's algorithm brought far more attention to the server than anyone was expecting. According to Sato, he didn't want the timeline to end up becoming YouTube focused. It's a 2B2T timeline after all, not a YouTube 2B2T timeline. So he discarded the name under that pretext. The fragmentation period was also considered. Sato has observed that 2B2T's community is very divided, not just by factions, but even by servers. We have seen more and more large 2B2T factions expanding their grasp to other anarchy servers like Constantium. There is also an interesting phenomenon that player affiliation has become more relaxed. It's not uncommon to find players who are in multiple groups at the same time, which before was considered a huge risk due to insiding. It's still very much a risk, but if factions want to grow, they need to deal with this new paradigm shift. Sato's reasoning of why the period of automation name was chosen is that it represents the future that 2B2T is headed towards, a more technical and efficient future. Despite the fact that the server has been stuck in 1.12 for years now, somehow the community has still managed to innovate, finding new exploits, dupes, and glitches that have shaken things up and kept the server somewhat interesting despite the lack of actual updates. There is an arms race by groups and factions to acquire competent coders and programmers, since they're the ones bringing in these new innovations. The 2B2T meta is already the most efficient when compared to other Minecraft servers.
What the heck is that?
These coders are
I
pushing
don't
the
know,
server to its absolute limits.
They have like these hacks and stuff where you're able to find like certain type of blocks and stuff easier. You can find like people's bases and things like that. Yeah, it's just a whole. We're gonna have to go through like some of the stuff from the 2B2T like wars and stuff they had. Like he was saying, incursions. Incursions is when like you have like large swaths of people who weren't in the server before new players come into the server, usually from like different countries. Like there's a time where there was like a bunch of like people from like I don't know. I think he said like Hong Kong or Korea or some shit. They're just like at a certain time of the day because there's different time periods across the planet. They would come in and all just start playing on a game, trying to find bases, griefing. So you had people who are already a part of 2B22 trying to like come together and kind of like protect the server almost because you get all these new people joining to trying to like up really. It's nuts, man. Just the amount of, like I said before, lore and stuff surrounding all this. It's insane. But yeah, hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Let us know if you want to see more videos down in the comments. Make sure you go check out our recent Let's Plays. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Let you niggas have it, I'm the chosen one. Had to overcome you niggas down me. You gon' boot or what? Never gave a fuck, I been about it. Check my balance. And all these pussy niggas really childish. North side race, so we know for getting violent.